Today, we're diving into a topic that I think is absolutely essential for crafting characters that leap off the page and straight into readers' hearts. Flaws and weaknesses. Have you ever read a story where the characters just felt a little too perfect, a little too squeaky clean and flawless? Maybe they always said and did the right thing, never struggled with any inner demons, or made questionable choices. Sure, those characters might be impressive or admirable on some level. But if you're anything like me, they probably also fell a bit flat. They were missing that crucial spark of authenticity, that messy human element that makes fictional characters feel like real people we can relate to and root for. In this video, we're going to explore why character flaws and weaknesses are so vital in the crafting of compelling fiction. We'll talk about how those imperfections can actually make your characters more complex and endearing to readers. We'll look at how flaws can be used to drive the juiciest conflict and tension in your story, both internally and externally. And we'll discuss some key strategies for weaving character flaws into your plot and character arcs in a way that paves the way for satisfying, meaningful growth and change. By the end of this discussion, you'll have a whole new appreciation for the storytelling power of imperfection and a toolkit of techniques to help you harness that power in your own writing. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about why flaws and weaknesses are so important for creating characters that feel authentic and relatable. We've all heard the old adage that nobody's perfect, and that's just as true for fictional characters as it is for flesh and blood people. When we read about a character who has identifiable flaws, who struggles with doubts and temptations and blind spots just like we do, it creates a sense of connection. We see a bit of ourselves reflected in that character, and it makes us invest in them on a deeper level. Think about some of the most iconic, beloved characters in all of literature. Characters like Elizabeth Bennet, with her tendency to judge too quickly and let her sharp tongue run away with her. Or Holden Caulfield, with his cynical outlook and disdain for phoniness. Or Hercule Poirot, with his arrogance and obsessive fastidiousness. All of these characters have majorly glaring flaws. But those flaws are a huge part of what makes them feel so vividly realized and memorable. We love them, not in spite of their imperfections, but because of them. Because those flaws make them feel human. So, when you're crafting your own characters, don't be afraid to give them some authentic weaknesses and rough edges. Maybe your protagonist has a short temper or a naive tendency to trust the wrong people. Maybe your villain is secretly insecure or struggles with an addiction. The key is to root those flaws in your character's specific background, personality, and experiences. The more intimately the imperfections are tied to who that character is and what shaped them, the more resonant they'll be for readers. Of course, flaws and weaknesses aren't just useful for making characters more relatable. They're also an incredible tool for generating nail-biting conflict and tension in your story. And I'm not just talking about external conflict, like when a character's flaw causes them to butt heads with other people or make choices that get them into trouble, though that's certainly part of it. I'm talking about the delicious internal conflict that arises when a character is at war with themselves, grappling with their own limitations and dark sides and desperate desires. One of my favorite examples of this is Holden Caulfield in The Catcher in the Rye. Holden's cynicism and disillusionment with the world aren't just surface-level quirks. They're deep-rooted flaws that are constantly causing friction, both within himself and with everyone he meets. His loneliness and alienation are directly tied to his inability to make genuine connections or find meaning and beauty in a world he sees as phony and disappointing. And that internal anguish bubbles over into his external relationships, as he lashes out at friends and family and sabotages his own chances at happiness. In Holden, we see how a character's flaws can be an endless wellspring of juicy, angsty, page-turning conflict. And that's something you can tap into with your own characters. As you're developing your story, look for ways to tie your characters' weaknesses directly to the central problems and tensions of your plot. How might your protagonist's fatal flaw be the very thing that trips them up in reaching their goal? How might your antagonist's deepest insecurity be the crack in their armor that brings about their downfall? When you're able to draw those connections between inner demons and outer roadblocks, you end up with a story that hums with tension on every level. Another key aspect of using character flaws effectively is learning to weave them throughout the larger patterns of your plot and character arc. You don't want your character's imperfections to just pop up whenever it's convenient. You want them to be an integral thread in the tapestry of your story, surfacing again and again in pivotal moments and interactions. Pride and Prejudice is a masterclass in this kind of intricate flaw weaving. Jane Austen doesn't just tell us once that Elizabeth Bennet can be a bit judgmental and then forget about it. She shows that flaw shaping Elizabeth's actions and relationships throughout the entire novel. We see it in her initial dismissal of Mr. Darcy as an arrogant snob, in her misplaced trust of the charming Wickham, in her heated confrontations with Lady Catherine. At every key juncture of the plot, Elizabeth's prejudices are front and center, influencing her choices and perceptions. And the genius of it is, those flaws aren't just stumbling blocks for Elizabeth. They're ultimately catalysts for her growth and change. It's only by having her preconceptions challenged, her blindnesses revealed, her pride humbled, that she's able to let go of her biases and open her heart to true love and understanding. Her imperfections are the gauntlet she has to run in order to become her best self. That's the real secret weapon of character flaws. They're not just fun ways to make your characters more complex or stir up conflict in your plot. They're opportunities for deeply satisfying development and transformation. We love watching characters struggle with their demons and finally learn to overcome them. It gives us hope that we can do the same in our own lives. So don't be afraid to really push your characters to the breaking point with their flaws. Put them in situations that test their weaknesses, that force them to confront the ugliest and most vulnerable parts of themselves. And then show us how they pick themselves back up and put in the hard work to grow and change in the aftermath. Let their imperfections be the fire that burns away everything that's holding them back, that forges them into stronger, wiser, better versions of themselves. One of my favorite examples of this is Frodo's journey in The Lord of the Rings. From the very beginning, Frodo's central flaw is his susceptibility to the corrupting influence of the One Ring. We see him constantly battling against its insidious whispers, fighting to resist the temptation to claim its power for himself. And as the quest goes on and the stakes get higher, that inner struggle only intensifies. There are moments when it seems like Frodo's weakness will be the undoing of the entire mission, like his flaw is an impossible obstacle he'll never be able to overcome. But in a way, that's exactly the point. It's only by being pushed to his absolute limit, by staring into the darkest depths of his own fallibility, that Frodo is able to find the strength and moral courage to resist the ring's final pull and complete his world-saving quest. His flaw becomes the crucible that burns away everything that's not essential, that proves the unshakable purity of his heroic spirit. And as readers, we're left in awe of his hard-won transformation. That, to me, is the real magic of character flaws. They're not just entertaining quirks or sources of conflict. They're powerful tools for crafting arcs of change and redemption that resonate in our very souls. When you learn to embrace your character's imperfections and use them to chart a path of painful, powerful growth, you unlock a whole new level of storytelling mastery. So, let's recap what we've learned today. If you want to create characters that feel authentic, relatable, and utterly unforgettable, don't shy away from giving them flaws and weaknesses. Root those imperfections in the character's specific backstory and personality to make them feel lived in. and human. Use them to generate tension and conflict, both internally and externally. Weave them like a thread throughout your larger plot and character arc. And most importantly, deploy them as catalysts for hard-won growth and change, letting your characters wrestle with their demons and emerge transformed. Remember, in the end, it's the cracks and jagged edges in your characters that will make them feel most vividly real and alive to readers. We don't connect with paragons of perfection. We connect with messy, struggling, achingly human characters who remind us of our own imperfect selves. So get out there and start exploring the beautiful storytelling potential of your character's fatal flaws. I promise you, your fiction will be all the richer for it.